Did you expect this kind of pushback from mayors whose budgets were already set before you brought in your own?
We're asking for the City of Toronto to find 1%, not 4%, 1% of their overall budget, and they can't find it. They have two solutions: raise taxes or cut programs. And we're saying find efficiencies.
The retroactive nature, though, of the cuts, that, I can imagine if you were down at City Hall still,
What happened to us?
You would not be happy if they said, oh, and the cuts go back to the beginning of the year.
Yeah, so
that's tough to deal with. Can you get that?
Yeah, they did that under McGuinty, so we dealt with it and we moved forward. We found over $1 billion of savings at the city. What bothers me is, you ask the people at home, you ask the person sitting on their couch or at their dinner table, can you find 1% in your family budget or 2%? And the city and other politicians are just absolutely saying no. That's just not reality. We need support. We said that at the fall economic statement. Vic Fideli said, we need your support. Every time I've seen the mayor, I've asked him, we need your support. Find 1 or 2%. We aren't asking much. It's not like we're asking for 10%. We're asking for 1 or 2%.
You mentioned John Tory in 2013 when he was at my old stomping grounds, if you use Talk 1010, both alma mater there. Mm-hmm. He said that politicians too often talk about, dealing with widows and orphans and cutting them. Mm-hmm. Do you think that he's doing that now when he says you're cutting vaccination programs, you're cutting school breakfasts, you're cutting childcare spaces? Is he doing what he accused politicians of doing in 2013?
He's an expert at doing that. He wants to say that the world's coming to an end. The world's coming to an end on 1%.
But I've talked to your officials and they say, look, there's no cuts to vaccinations, no cuts to school breakfast programs. Correct. And yet I keep hearing that over and over again, that that's what you're cutting. Can you assure me? Because the city says that's what you're cutting. The city says you're cutting those things and childcare. Can you assure me and everyone watching that you're not cutting those core public health, whether it be at the City of Toronto or any other municipality across the province?
I can assure you that we aren't cutting the breakfast program. It's not even in the program there, so I don't know how we're cutting something that's not in that program. And we support things like the breakfast program. We support making sure that people get proper health care. And the only way you can take care of education and health care is by taking care of your balance sheet.
You're taking a lot of hits for cuts to healthcare and education. Now, I've actually looked at the numbers. I'm one of the people that complains you didn't cut enough.
Sure.
I'm one of the guys you complain about because I say you didn't cut enough. Education total spend is up 11%. Healthcare is up 5%. And yet you're being denounced daily in the media by the opposition, be it Andrea Horwath or Joe Cressy or mayors across the province, that you're cutting these things. Should you maybe have actually cut, since you're being blamed for it anyway? Should you have taken those hard?
That's crossed my mind. I thought, wow, we're being blamed for it. Listen, they put their spin on it. They're being disingenuous. They aren't being honest with the people. The numbers are right there, as you saw firsthand. We increased education, $700 million, healthcare, $1.3 billion, and they're trying to go after the hearts of people. Well, it's just not accurate. It's not true, and it's disappointing that they have to lie like that.
One of the promises you made during the election campaign was no one will lose their job. Then the language changed to no frontline worker will lose their job.
Correct.
You can't balance the budget without jobs being cut, though. I mean, look, I've run the numbers on education. Sure. We went up by 13,000 teachers, added 9,000 ECE workers, all while student enrollment was going down by 109,000.
That's right.
That is, I don't know how you do that and keep a sustainable system. And it's like that across the public sector. The previous government spent and added jobs. How do you cut without losing jobs?
Well, through a attrition program that a lot of people have accepted the program, similar to what we did at the city. Matter of fact, we have more people.
Are you offering buyouts, or is it just retirement and people that decide to move on?
Well, we've offered buyouts as well, and there's more people that want the buyouts than what we can afford right now. So we're looking at that across every single ministry, and you're right, no frontline worker is going to lose their job. It doesn't mean the high-level managers aren't going to, and consolidating areas, be it health, the LINs. All I heard is about these terrible LINs across the province from doctors and nurses.
But they just added paper pushers and no doctors.
You're right. So we're consolidating that. We're also looking at the school boards. We have to look at school boards. I always question, for years before I was even in politics, and I know that teachers don't like them. There's not too many people like the school boards. Is there a way of working with the school boards to drive more efficiencies?
Are you going to combine the public and the Catholic? Because that would be quite a fight to have.
No, we're looking at that, but we're looking at consolidating other areas throughout the school boards. And when you have teachers and principals that retire, get their full pot pension, and then they get hired at the school board for $230,000, $250,000, that's unacceptable.
You are being accused of being willing to spend $100 million to get out of a beer contract, or maybe more, while cutting frontline spending. You don't drink.
Yeah.
You're accused of being obsessed with alcohol,
Yeah.
which is odd for a guy that doesn't drink.
Yeah.
Are you willing to spend that much money to put beer and wine in corner stores?
Oh, we're the only jurisdiction in North America. I have friends that come up from the U.S. and they think we're antiquated. We're back in 1900s. What's wrong with someone going into a local retail grocery store, buying a steak and grabbing a bottle of wine or a case of beer? It's not the end of the world. Matter of fact, we have to get up with the times, and we have to be responsible and treat our adults like adults.
If it ends up being that you've got to pay a huge amount of money, do you just hold off, find another way? Are you willing to pay that money? Because
everyone's speculating. That's what's happened. They started at 7 million, they went up to 100, then they went up to 500 million, and then people are running around saying it's $1 billion. They're speculating. Let's see how the talks go, and we're going to negotiate hard. But at the end of the day, we're going to have beer and wine in retail stores, convenience stores right across this province.
Later today, you're meeting with New Brunswick Premier Blaine Hakes.
Yes.
You've met with him before, I know at the Council of the Federation of Montreal, but he's an ally in the carbon tax fight.
Yes.
I want to ask you about the fact that a published report over the weekend showed the people of New Brunswick are paying about a quarter of the carbon tax that the people of Ontario are. Mm-hmm. So when the Trudeau government in Ottawa decided that you didn't have the right carbon tax, he's going to impose it. It was a lower tax in the Atlantic provinces where they all voted Liberal federally. Do you feel like Ontario's getting ripped off there?
Well, we think it's a carbon tax is terrible right across the board for all provinces, and you've seen a blue sweep starting from PEI to New Brunswick and Ontario, and to a certain degree Quebec. I still feel Premier Legault is a fiscal conservative. Along with Manitoba, Saskatchewan, now Alberta. It makes us uncompetitive around the world. It's like competing against one hand tied behind our back. The Paris Agreement was 30% emissions reductions. We're at 22.5% without a carbon tax.
What do you think of Justin Trudeau running against you in the fall election?
He wants to run against me. He's trying to run against me, Justin Trudeau, but I'm not getting involved in this election. I'm focusing on Ontario. Getting that back on track, creating jobs, creating prosperity here in Ontario, and we're doing that. We're pretty modest on our budget. In some areas we could have went a little leaner, in other areas a little softer, but I think we went right down the middle, and I think it's a good budget, and the economy's booming. That's all I look at the end of the day. Are we creating jobs? Are we lowering taxes? Is the economy booming in Ontario? And the answer is yes, 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 yes.